Why hello there Pen Warriors, Shams Nelson here from Pen and Blade, and in this video I'm going to take you through a 5-step method for creating your own monsters, villains, creatures, any kind of enemy that you might want to throw at your players in your tabletop role-playing game. This will be a generalized tutorial, so I'm kind of thinking Dungeons and Dragons-esque, but I'm actually using this method on my new tabletop role-playing game that I've been developing, World of Chibu. Step 1. Choose your theme. So choose 1 or 2 words that give the general theme of what you're trying to create. So if it's some kind of a swamp-based monster, swamp would be your theme. If it's undead, then that's going to be your theme. Draconic, perhaps, flying. You can choose whatever it is, and maybe even choose 2 words. So imagine if you combine draconic and swamp, or flying and undead. Now you're starting to get a much more specific idea of what this creature might be. To give an example from World of Chibu, I combined ninja and wood elemental to create these little leaf ninja fellas that sneak around and wreak havoc from the shadows. Another example, I was still building within the world elemental theme, are these Berserkers, who are like berserker barbarians mixed with wood elementals. Step 2. Now that you've chosen a theme, let's add a vibe to it. So a vibe is more of the emotional impact that this creature or monster has. While the theme is usually more of a noun, a person, place, or thing, something descriptive in that way, the vibe is more descriptive on both how this creature or monster conveys itself emotionally and what emotional impact you might want to have on your players. And so this can be a little more nebulous, but like if you want to invoke fear in your players, if you want to evoke awe, if it's humorous, these are all different kinds of vibes. So the Leaf Ninjas have these kind of cool, badass vibes, right? And they're quick and they're kind of, it's hard to put a word on it. I think maybe the vibe is more almost like Naruto, if you could say that. And then the Berserkers, their vibe is like aggressive, relentless, just all out in your face, like a Jeep running you down or something like that, So you don't have to have an exact word, but like, what is that feeling? Kind of tap into that. Step 3. This is where you're going to start looking at what are the special abilities that this monster creature has. I'll just use the word monster from now on. What are the abilities that it uses in and out of combat that make it unique, that make it interesting? So you can draw from the theme and the vibe to come up with these. Some ideas that I had for the examples given so far was that the Leaf Ninjas have this aura of leaves circling around them that does damage. They're like these sharp leaves that do damage to anyone within melee attacking range. And then for the Berserkers, there's this ability of, as they take more damage, they do more damage. So every time you inflict damage on them, they get an extra attack dice. Step 4. How can you make these abilities force your characters to make a choice? So one of the most interesting things about playing games in general is the creativity and the weighing the stakes of making different choices. The more choices you have, the more interesting the game will be, typically. When you design your abilities, how can the mechanics make your players have to make an interesting or difficult decision? So for the Leaf Ninjas, even just having that razor leaf aura kind of makes you wonder if you want to engage with them at a melee level. Do you want to go in and inflict damage there, or would it be better to stay back and avoid them and instead do some damage, try to figure out how to attack them from afar? And I might make this even more interesting by letting them have a higher AC when they're at a distance. So you might try to attack them from afar and find you're missing more often, but if you get close, then you're more likely to take damage. So that creates the choice with the character and the players. What do they want to do? Do they want to come in melee and take that chance, or do they want to stay far and have less of a chance to actually take them down quickly? The interesting thing is that there's no right or wrong answer. And that's a cool way to think about when you're making these mechanics. Step 5. How can you surprise your players? So surprises are always fun, especially when they make sense within the world building. There's so many different ways you can do this, but think about how you can surprise your characters at the beginning of the encounter, during the encounter, and even after the encounter. So for instance, coming to the Berserkers, at the beginning of the encounter, before you engage with them, they look like statues, like totems. And then only once they're triggered, which can be done in a number of ways, do they attack. Then during the encounter, they only focus on the person who triggered them. So they will ignore all other enemies until they've defeated whoever has triggered them. So that kind of can be a surprise and can make things interesting as the tank tries to take over potentially, but this Berserker keeps ignoring him and going after whoever was the first one, the rogue that maybe went to unlock the door, and that's what triggered the Berserker to come to life. And then even afterwards, there's a surprise in that if they have this elementology knowledge or craftsmanship potentially, they'll be able to harvest the shell, so the elemental essence will return to the elemental plane, and the shell of the Berserker will remain in the material, and it's this especially hard and resistant material. So they can use that to craft shield and armor that would be especially potent, powerful. To give another example, these little creatures, I think that they will be called sprits, are neutral in their essence. They're maybe mischievous, but the surprise in the beginning of the encounter is if you're able to befriend them by giving them a gift, and a gift can be pretty much anything. It could be a rock you pick up off the ground. They don't really differentiate between what the gift is, but just see gift giving as a sign of allegiance. Then they will actually befriend you and try to do something to help you within the next 1d4 hours, let's say. But if you attack them, then they will fight you. They won't be much of a threat probably, but once you defeat them, they will seemingly disappear, but actually they'll transform into their dark form, the horror crackle. I think that's what they'll be called, the horror crackle. And then they will haunt you for the next 1d4 hours and either do something that gives you disadvantage on your roll, maybe try to steal an item from you. They'll do something to basically get revenge. So this is an interesting way to surprise your players, I think, and kind of add a little intrigue to your monster. So that's it. I hope you were following along and creating your own monster, and I would love to hear what you come up with in the comments below. And I also wanted to mention that I added our treasure boxes that we made quite a few years ago to penandblade.com, and that has a lot of these monsters and traps and locations and just kind of interesting ideas that might spark your creativity or you might choose to use in your campaign. They're all compatible with D&D 5e. So you can go to penandblade.com and grab those if you're interested. And that's it. Peace, God bless, and stay fantastic, everyone.